Hey there. Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're going to be like wading into this topic that's really got people talking online body positivity.
Hmm.
We found this really fascinating Reddit post, and it sparked this whole debate about telling someone they don't need to lose weight.
Right.
Is it actually helpful, or could it be kind of harmful?
Yeah.
And this isn't just like surface level stuff either.
Yeah.
It gets into some really interesting territory, like the psychology of it all, how it plays into mental health,
Mm,
even the expectations we have as a society.
definitely.
I think this is going to be something you can really relate to, especially given your interest in mentioned a related interest the listener might have based on their provided persona.
For sure.
So to help us unpack all of this, expert speakers here with their expertise.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really interested to dig into this.
Let's dive in.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so this whole thing about body positivity, it's everywhere online right now.
It really is. And this Reddit post we found, it's like a perfect example of how complicated these conversations can get. There's so much nuance.
For sure. So let's break down this Reddit post a bit.
Hmm.
I think the main argument is that saying something like, hey, you don't need to lose weight, even when we mean it in a supportive way,
Right.
it might actually do more harm than good.
Exactly. That's what the original poster was saying. They were concerned about the downsides, both for the person hearing it and for how we see weight as a society.
Yeah.
And that obviously sparked a ton of discussion in the comments.
Oh, I bet.
People on both sides with really strong opinions.
That makes sense, though, right?
Yeah,
Because it's such a complex issue.
absolutely.
So many different perspectives and experiences.
It's not black and white at all.
Not at all. So for the sake of this deep dive, let's wade into some of the potentially harmful aspects.
Yeah.
What are some of the arguments against telling someone they don't need to lose weight?
Well, one of the biggest concerns is the psychological impact.
Oh, okay.
Some people are saying that this approach, even with good intentions, it can accidentally feed into a culture of fat shaming. And we know how damaging that can be to someone's mental health.
You know, that's not something I really thought about before. Because on the surface, it seems like, oh, I'm trying to be positive.
Right.
You'd think so. But when you really think about it,
Yeah,
I can see how it can make someone feel worse about themselves.
absolutely. Especially if it's not done super carefully.
Totally. And there's research on this, right?
There is fat shaming. It usually backfires.
Really?
Yeah, instead of making someone want to change, it often just makes them feel ashamed, guilty, even like their self-esteem takes a hit.
Wow.
And then they might turn to unhealthy ways to cope, like emotional eating, for example,
Right.
which could actually make the problems worse.
So it's like we're trying to be supportive, but we might actually be pushing people further away from a healthy relationship with their body.
Exactly. It's an unintended consequence.
Wow. And then there's the whole stigma around weight too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So
That's a huge part of this.
even if it sounds supportive on the surface, telling someone they don't need to lose weight can sometimes make that stigma even worse.
Totally. It can feed into it.
Can you explain that a bit more? What do you mean by that?
It comes down to recognizing that obesity is complicated.
Okay.
It's not as simple as some people might think.
Hmm.
It's not just about calories in, calories out. There's genetics involved, environment, socioeconomic factors, even psychology plays a role.
So you're saying it's not always about willpower or personal choice.
Right, exactly. It's way more complex than that.
Okay.
And when we oversimplify it and just focus on weight,
Yeah,
it's like we're saying someone's worth is tied to their size.
that makes sense. It's about seeing the whole person, not just a number on the scale.
Exactly.
So we've got the psychological and social stuff to think about. But what about the actual health aspects? I know the Reddit post brought up some concerns about that too, like ignoring potential health risks.
Oh, absolutely. That's a key part of this whole conversation. We can't ignore the fact that obesity is linked to some serious health problems. Diabetes, heart disease, joint problems, just to name a few.
Right.
Promoting body positivity is important, but it shouldn't mean ignoring potential risks to someone's health.
So how do you find that balance then? How do you encourage body positivity and self-acceptance while acknowledging that there might be health risks?
It is tricky. It's a delicate balance for sure.
Yeah.
One thing we could try is shifting the focus away from weight itself
Okay.
and instead talk about building healthy habits that make us feel good both physically and mentally.
I like that. It feels more holistic. you know?
Yeah.
Like instead of chasing some perfect body,
Right.
it's about making choices that support your well-being as a whole person.
Exactly.
So what kind of habits are we talking about here?
Oh, there are so many. Like eating more nutritious food, finding a way to move your body that you actually enjoy,
Right.
managing stress, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
It's really about giving people the power to choose what's right for them and their body,
Yeah.
regardless of what the scale says.
Right. And that actually leads into another point from the Reddit post.
Oh, yeah.
It talked about how telling someone they don't need to lose weight could actually create unrealistic expectations,
Interesting.
which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, I can see that.
So we're trying to find that balance between self-acceptance, but also respecting someone's personal health goals,
Right.
which might include losing weight.
Exactly. Because while accepting yourself unconditionally is a great goal,
For sure.
we also have to acknowledge that people might have their own personal health goals, and sometimes those goals might include weight loss for whatever reason.
Right. So it's about respecting their right to decide what healthy means for them.
Exactly. It's about their autonomy, their right to define that for themselves.
And sometimes setting realistic goals, even if they're about weight, can be really empowering.
Totally. It's not about trying to achieve some impossible standard.
Right.
It's about finding changes that you can actually stick with and that improve your life overall.
This all comes back to what we were saying earlier,
Like that.
that weight and health are complicated
Yeah.
and they're personal.
Yeah.
There's no one solution that fits everyone.
100%. You're absolutely right.
And that's probably why it's so important to be sensitive and compassionate when we're talking about this stuff.
For sure.
Every single person's experience with their body is different.
Absolutely.
No judgment, no comparisons.
Exactly. You said it.
This is making me think about the bigger picture, too.
Oh, how so?
Steaming out from just the individual.
Yeah.
Like, as a society, we're kind of obsessed with weight, aren't we?
Oh, absolutely. We are bombarded with messages about it everywhere we look. Lose weight, get this ideal body type.
It's like it's never ending.
And there's this belief that shaming people for their weight will somehow magically make them want to be healthier.
It's like if we just make people feel bad enough about themselves,
Right.
then they'll change overnight.
Like it's that simple. But it's just not true. It's misguided, and honestly, it usually has the opposite effect. It's kind of like that saying, you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar.
Right.
Trying to shame someone into being healthier,
Yeah.
it just doesn't really work.
Feels like that whole thing of fat shaming backfiring.
Exactly. And the research actually backs that up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they've done studies, and it shows that when you shame people for their weight,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't usually lead to positive change.
Interesting.
In
right?
fact, it can make it even harder to address obesity effectively.
Wow. So if shaming and judging aren't the answer, how do we, as a society, how do we approach this in a better way?
I think it starts with a big shift in how we see things.
Okay.
Instead of looking at weight as like a personal failure,
Right.
we need to acknowledge all the other factors involved, you
Yeah.
know, the systemic stuff.
What do you mean?
Well, things like socioeconomic disparities, for example.
Oh, right.
Access to healthcare, how food is marketed to us.
It's all connected.
It all plays into the big picture.
So it's about recognizing that our environment and our circumstances have a huge
It's
impact.
huge.
And it's about creating a system that helps everyone make healthy choices,
Yeah.
not just a select few.
Exactly. Imagine if healthy, fresh food was affordable and available to everyone,
Right.
no matter where they live or how much money they make.
That'd be amazing.
Or think about communities that are designed for physical activity with safe parks and places to walk.
Yeah.
Those are just a couple of examples, but it shows how we need to look beyond just individual responsibility.
Right. It's not just about willpower.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about creating an environment that actually sets people up for success.
Love that. It's
Yeah.
like we're giving people the tools and support they need to make those healthy choices.
Exactly.
And part of that is promoting body positivity in a way that truly embraces all bodies,
Yes.
celebrating diversity without all the harmful stereotypes.
100%. So instead of focusing on appearance,
Yeah.
we focus on well-being,
Okay.
celebrating what our bodies can do, not what they look like.
Right.
Because health looks different on everyone.
Exactly. There's no one right way to have a body.
And that's something we're celebrating.
You know, I was doing some research for our deep dive today, and I came across this quote that really resonated with me.
Oh, yeah. What was it?
It said, "Our bodies are not apologies."
Oh, I love that.
It's so good, Britt.
It's a great reminder that we don't owe anyone thinness or a certain dress size.
Right.
We deserve respect and love exactly as we are.
Yes. And I think that's such an important message,
Absolutely.
especially as we're having these conversations.
It all comes back to that balance we were talking about before.
Right.
We can embrace and celebrate body positivity, but also recognize that everyone's health journey is different.
And acknowledging those individual health journeys, it doesn't take away from the message of body positivity.
No, not at all.
If anything, it makes it stronger
Right.
because it shows how complex and personal this all is.
Exactly. It's about holding space for both, embracing our bodies as they are right now, and supporting people who are making choices to improve their health and well-being.
It's not one or the other.
It's both.
It's both. It's understanding that you can love and appreciate your body
Yes,
and still want to be the healthiest version of yourself.
exactly.
Whatever that looks like for you. This whole conversation has been really eye-opening for me.
Yeah.
We started with this Reddit post and it turned into this deep dive on like body image, mental health,
Yeah.
all these expectations we face as a society.
It's true. It really makes you think.
It does.
It is.
I feel like I have a lot to process now.
Me too, for sure.
One thing that really stuck with me was that idea of shifting our perspective. You know, moving away from seeing weight as this personal failing
Right.
and starting to see the bigger picture, like all those systemic factors we talked about.
Yeah, those are so important.
Things like socioeconomic disparities,
Wow.
access to healthcare, even just how food is marketed to us.
It's easy to forget about those things when you're just focused on the individual.
Right. It's like we get so caught up in our own experiences that we forget to zoom out and look at the system we're all a part of.
Exactly. And that system, it doesn't always help everyone equally.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
So how do we change that? How do we create a system that's more equitable and supportive for everyone?
Well, I think having these conversations is a good place to start.
Yeah, for sure.
Shining a light on these issues, talking about them openly and honestly.
Because we can't change what we don't acknowledge.
Exactly. We have to be willing to see things from different perspectives, challenge our own assumptions.
You know, I have to admit, when we first started talking about this Reddit post, I was a little nervous.
Oh, yeah. Why is that?
It just felt like such a sensitive topic.
Right.
And I didn't want to say the wrong thing.
I understand. But I'm really glad we had this conversation.
Me too. It was so important.
These are the conversations we need to be having.
Absolutely.
So for everyone listening, we want to hear from you. This Reddit post clearly got people talking. Where do you stand on this? What are your own experiences with body image and societal expectations? Head over to our social media pages and share your thoughts. We'd love to keep this conversation going. And until next time, keep diving deep.